Rick sat upright in his hospital bed, the four tugging at his arm as he read the note again. We need to talk about the officer who tipped off the gunman. His heart pounded. Tipped off? That meant the shooter hadn't just shown up by chance. Someone inside the force had orchestrated this. Someone wanted him gone. 2 days later, a woman in a gray suit arrived at Rick's hospital room. She introduced herself as Agent Marissa Cole. Internal Affairs. She closed the door and spoke in a hushed voice. Officer Grayson, first let me say, you saved lives that day. But I'm not here to congratulate you. I'm here because we believe the attack wasn't random. Rick frowned. You think one of my own set me up? Agent Cole nodded. The suspect who shot at the governor was on police radar for months. Yet somehow, he knew exactly when and where the outreach fair was happening, and exactly where you would be. That's not a coincidence. Rick clenched his jaw. His mind flashed through the faces of fellow officers, men he had worked with, trusted. Who would want me dead? Cole leaned in. We've already traced a phone call made the night before the attack. It came from within your precinct. The voice on the recording said, make sure he's there. Make sure Rick goes down with him. Rick's blood ran cold. Who was it? He demanded. Cole shook her head. That's the problem. The voice was disguised. But we do know this. Whoever it was, they outrank you. Before leaving, Agent Cole handed him a burner phone. If you want the truth, you'll need to work with us. But be careful, don't trust anyone. Not even your closest colleagues. This is bigger than one bad cop. It could go all the way up the chain of command. Rick stared at the phone long after she left. He had just regained his reputation. But now he faced something darker. Corruption that could destroy not just him, but everything he had fought to rebuild. That night, Eli visited him again. Rick debated telling him about internal affairs, but something held him back. He didn't want Eli, or the governor, dragged into a war within the police force. But Eli could sense the tension. You're carrying something, he said quietly. Don't let pride make you fight this battle alone. Rick. Secrets like that can eat a man alive. Rick forced a smile. I'll be fine. But inside, his stomach twisted with unease. Weeks later, Rick returned to duty. His first day back, his sergeant called him into the office. Grayson, good to see you're back. We've got a lead on some illegal arms deals happening downtown. I want you on the front line for this one. The assignment sounded routine, but something about the way his sergeant smiled made Rick uneasy. Later, as he geared up for the operation, the burner phone buzzed with a single text from Agent Cole. Don't go. It's a setup. Rick froze. If Cole was right, walking into this operation could mean walking straight into a trap. But if he backed out, his entire precinct would know he was working against them. Rick stood at the edge of a decision that could cost him everything. His career, his life, maybe even Eli's trust. He tightened his vest, gripped his badge, and whispered to himself, all right then, let's find out who's pulling the strings. The warehouse loomed in the distance, a crooked silhouette against the city skyline. The briefing claimed it was an arms smuggling hub. But Rick knew better. If Agent Cole's warning was true, this wasn't a bust. It was an ambush. Still, he strapped on his vest and joined the convoy. If he backed out now, every eye in the precinct would be on him. And if there really was a mole, they'd know he was onto them. I can't run, Rick thought. I need to see this through. Move, move, move. The sergeant barked as the team stormed the warehouse. Officers spread out, weapons raised, flashlights cutting through the dark. Rick scanned every corner. The place was too clean, too quiet. No crates, no smugglers, no signs of life. Something was wrong. Then he heard it, the metallic click of a safety being switched off. From the shadows, armed men emerged. Not gangsters, not smugglers, mercenaries, dressed in black, faces covered. The sergeant shouted, "Take them down!" But Rick froze. The mercenaries weren't aiming at the cops. They were aiming only at him. Bullets ripped through the air. Rick dove behind a steel beam, shards of concrete exploding around him. "Cover fire!" he shouted. But when he looked back, his own squad wasn't firing. They were watching. His sergeant smirked. "Sorry, Grayson. Wrong place, wrong time. Rick's stomach turned. The setup was real. His own unit had fed him to the wolves. Heart pounding, Rick fired 3 quick shots, dropping 2 mercenaries. He rolled behind a crate, grabbing a fallen weapon. Adrenaline surged through him. "Come on then," he growled, his voice echoing through the warehouse. The mercenaries closed in, but Rick fought like a man with nothing left to lose. Years of training, sharpened instincts, and raw survival kept him alive. He clipped one in the leg, smashed another across the jaw with his rifle, and ducked just in time as a bullet grazed his shoulder. But there were too many. Suddenly, the roar of engines filled the warehouse. A black SUV crashed through the side door, screeching to a halt. The back door flew open. "Rick, get in." It was Agent Cole. Internal Affairs had tracked the raid. Rick sprinted for the SUV as bullets rained down. His sergeant shouted after him, "You won't last the week, Grayson." Cole floored the gas, tires screaming as the SUV tore through the wreckage. Breathing hard, Rick turned to her. "You were right. My own men set me up." Cole didn't answer right away. She reached into her jacket and pulled out a thin folder, tossing it onto his lap. Inside were surveillance photos, grainy but clear enough. Rick's sergeant, meeting in secret with a man Rick recognized instantly. The governor's political rival. Rick's stomach dropped. This wasn't just corruption in the precinct. It was a conspiracy tied to the highest levels of government. Agent Cole gripped the wheel, eyes locked on the road. "Rick, you need to understand something. This goes deeper than you think. If we're not careful, you won't just lose your badge. You'll lose your life." Rick closed the folder, fists tightening. "Then we hit back. Hard." Cole shook her head. "No. First, we find the leak. Because someone in Internal Affairs is feeding them everything we know." Rick froze. Even Cole's own department isn't safe? The car sped into the night, 2 unlikely allies hurtling toward a truth that could shatter everything. The SUV screeched to a stop in an underground garage. Cole cut the engine, her chest still heaving from the chase. Rick sat frozen, the folder of evidence on his lap. His sergeant, the man who had trained him, vouched for him, had sold him out. And to see the governor's rival in those photos? That meant this wasn't just about a dirty cop. This was a war. They took a freight elevator, its dull hum filling the silence. Cole glanced at Rick. "You still don't get it, do you?" she said. Rick frowned. "Get what?" "You weren't supposed to survive tonight. They're terrified of you, Grayson, because you're not for sale. And in this city, that makes you dangerous." Rick stared at the numbers ticking upward. He wasn't sure if Cole was warning him or threatening him. Inside a dimly lit office at Internal Affairs headquarters, Cole spread the photos across the table. "Your sergeant is compromised. That much is clear, but he's just a pawn. Someone higher up is pulling the strings." Rick leaned forward. "Then let's drag him in. Put him in the chair. Make him talk." Cole's eyes narrowed. "If we move too fast, we tip our hand. Remember, there's a mole inside IA. The moment they know what we know, you're dead." Before Rick could answer, the office phone rang. Cole picked it up, listened, then hung up slowly. "That was dispatched," she said. "Your precinct just logged you as missing in action. They think you're dead." Rick raised a brow. "Good. Let's keep it that way." But Cole didn't smile. She leaned closer. "If they believe you're dead, then you're free to move in the shadows. But I need to know, Grayson, are you in this for justice or revenge?" Rick clenched his fists. The image of his sergeant's smirk burned in his mind. "Does it matter?" "It does," Cole whispered. "Because revenge gets you killed. Justice might save us all." Hours later, Rick slipped into his precinct under the cover of night. The halls were empty, the glow of desk lamps casting long shadows. He went straight to the evidence locker. If his sergeant was dirty, there'd be something hidden here, missing files, tampered reports, anything. But as he reached for a drawer, a voice cut through the silence. "Couldn't stay dead? Could you, Grayson?" Rick spun around, hand instinctively going to his weapon. It was Detective Harris, his oldest friend on the force, the man who'd been by his side since day one. Harris stepped out of the shadows, his expression unreadable. "You weren't supposed to walk out of that warehouse," he said coldly. Rick's chest tightened. "You? Harris? You were in on it." Harris's lips curved into a bitter smile. "You still don't understand. This isn't betrayal. This is survival. You think the governor's rival is the only one cashing in? The whole system's rigged, Rick. And you're about to blow it for all of us." Rick's world tilted. His friend, his brother, one of the only people he thought he could trust, had chosen the other side. Rick slowly raised his weapon. Harris did the same. Two former allies, guns leveled at each other in the quiet precinct. "You've got one chance to walk away, Grayson," Harris said. "Forget tonight. Forget what you saw. Otherwise, the next time we meet, only one of us walks out." The air between them was heavy, the silence broken only by the ticking of the wall clock. Rick's finger tightened on the trigger. The silence in the precinct was suffocating. Two men who had once trusted each other with their lives now stood inches from pulling the trigger. Rick's weapon didn't waver, but his voice was calm. "Harris, you're a good liar. I'll give you that. But you're forgetting one thing." Harris tilted his head, his fingers still curled on the trigger. "What's that?" Rick's eyes locked on his. "I know you better than anyone, and I know you're not pulling that trigger unless you absolutely have to, because you don't want blood on your hands." A faint flicker, doubt, guilt, crossed Harris's face. Rick slowly lowered his weapon, making it look deliberate, controlled. "If you were really all in on this, you would have shot me the second you saw me here. But you didn't, which means you're deeper than you want to be, and you're scared." Harris's jaw tightened. He didn't answer. Rick leaned in, lowering his voice. "So tell me this, brother. Who's holding your leash?" That word, brother, hit Harris harder than Rick expected. His gun wavered just slightly. "You don't get it, Rick. They own everything. Judges, detectives, even captains. You think you can fight that? They'll bury you before you even get close." Rick kept his face stone cold, but inside, adrenaline surged. He said, "They. Not just the sergeant. There's more. Higher up. You just gave me more than you realize," Rick said quietly. Rick holstered his weapon. "Fine. You want me to walk away? I'll walk." He turned his back deliberately, every instinct screaming that Harris might shoot him down right there. But the gunshot never came. Instead, Harris's voice broke through the silence. "If you love your brother as much as you claim, leave this alone. They'll use him to get to you." Rick froze. His brother, the governor. When he turned back, Harris was gone, vanished into the dark hallways like a ghost. Back at Internal Affairs, Rick paced the floor while Cole scribbled notes on a board. "He slipped, Cole," Rick said. "He's scared, and he warned me they'd go after my brother. That means they're running out of time. But we can use that fear against him." Cole tapped her pen. "You want to bait him?" Rick nodded. "I'll make him think I have proof that could expose everyone. Harris won't be able to resist. He'll lead me straight to the top." Cole raised a brow. "And if he decides to silence you instead?" Rick's jaw hardened. "Then we know just how far he's fallen." The next night, Rick slipped an unmarked envelope into the precinct Dropbox. Inside was a single USB stick, empty. But word would spread fast. That Rick had evidence. That he wasn't dead. All he had to do was wait for the trap to spring. From the shadows of the precinct parking lot, headlights flicked on. A black SUV idled, watching him. Rick exhaled slowly. The game had begun. Never underestimate someone because of how they look. Power, dignity, and truth often hide behind humble faces, and arrogance always collapses in the end. The end.